So we're here to solve this round trip puzzle by Grant Fikes called Prime Time. It has only prime outside clues, and these two biggest clues, this 7 and the 7, will always have to take these middle 6 in that row. Notice that we could go over here, or this could be the terminating point. So when we have marked in a grid a touch point, until we've actually marked the edges or gone through the edges, we don't know any more about them, but this is one place to start. The other is actually this first column, which has two clues that are not the same size, so they're distinct clues, and they're going to have to work together. In this case, this 3 and 2 come out, this comes here, this goes over. What that actually now does is mark this edge, and in marking that edge, we now have to force this path for the 7s. This is going to be turning, and if it turned to the right, it wouldn't be able to obey the 3 clues, so it turns to the left. That's going to finish here. This now is another path. If it turns up, it can't obey a 3 clue, so it turns down. So these are the valid starts for these parts of the grid. We can ask ourselves, is this end going to equal the 5? If it equals the 5, it would come out to this cell and turn down here, which is impossible. So the 5 has to be a new group. It would have to be taking at least these 4 cells, but notice it can't turn down here. So it's here to get to 5, turns down. This comes over, that turns down. Down here, we've got another situation off this group of 3. It's got to come to the left, or it's not going to be able to get as large as 3. So this comes up. This group here, in this bottom row, if it came up and closed off here, would only be too long, so that's not going to work, but it could come here and turn up. This now has to go to the right, and it's got a 3 clue near it, so it's going to have to go through there. Looking still in that same row, we've got a 2 clue from the right. It can't cross over this because that would make it 3 long, but it can come through here and be 2 long. This 2 now of a row below can't cross over here, can't cross over here. Those would all be too long. These aren't usable, so it must come in here. This now is a turning point that's going to interact with this 2 clue. If it went down, it would not be able to get a 2, so it's going to have to come up. This end then has to come up. These ends, just for connectivity through the rest of the grid, have to do this. This 2 clue on the right, same thing as before, can't cross over here, so this crosses up. This could turn, so we don't know anything more with this side yet. But let's come back to some of the other things we've marked into the grid and see that besides this 2 clue not being used, we still have to get a 2 clue up here. There's some flexibility for what that does, but one thing we can see is from the loop not closing on itself that this stretch here, if this end came through, would be bad. So this goes forward, crosses over, this comes in here, this marks off. This still now, it needs to turn, and it can't turn down, but if it comes up here and stops here, it would again close off this loop, so this has to keep extending. And does this, we now have a path that this whole big end comes over to here, so now this is a complex channel. If these closed off, it would close off the loop too soon, so this has to come up instead of down. This comes up, this 2 clue forces this to be turning, and we finish the grid. So a good start to this puzzle that Grant seeded with this first column with these turning groups forcing the 7s, that then putting some turns right near these outside clues that have to come into the grid, this 3, this 3, this 3, etc. Eventually formed enough structure, particularly using these 2 rows, we had a part of the loop would close on itself, and then we just kept thinking about that to get through to the end of the grid. So it's a challenging logical puzzle style until you get used to some of the deductions, but I think this learning puzzle is a good example of a lot of the key steps in round trip. So I hope you got something from this video, and we'll see you again soon.